All right, Army Regulation 201, Environmental Quality, Environmental Protection and Enhancement. I believe we're on Chapter 4, Environmental Assessment Management. Environmental assessment entrusted with the Army's care and included but not limited to the air, water, land, and natural cultural resources specified by the Department of Defense, Army policy, legal, and other requirements made. Programs, requirements associated with environmental resources presented within this section of the Office of Assessment Check of the Chief of Staff of the Installation Management Command, Office of Director of Environmental Programs, and are responsible for environmental policy, program policy implementation, headquarters Department of the Army level of program oversight, Installation Management Command, and National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard are responsible for the executing environmental program requirements prescribed here and in accordance with the regulation applicable federal, state, local requirements, technical support for the addressing environment areas and requirements prescribed with the section responsible for the appropriate program of offices within the U.S. Army Environmental Command, the U.S. Army Center of the Health, Promotion, and Preventive Medicine, Assistant Secretary of Army Acquisition, Logistics, Technology, Environmental Mental Support Office, and Military Program Director of the U.S. Army Corps Engineering. 4.1 Air Resources Policy. Comply with applicable federal, state, and local air quality regulations, permanent requirements oversees final governing standards and identify the implementation of cost-effective pollution prevention measures that will include reduce toxic criteria, air emissions, allegate dependency on ozone depletion substances, legal other requirements. Section 7401, Title 42 U.S. Standard Code, Clear Air Action. Section 6901, Title 42 U.S. Standard Code, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, as the Energy Policy Act of 2005, applicable state and local requirements of the country specific with the final governing standards. Major group of the program is chiefly to maintain air quality standards with the club protecting the human health and the environment with minimization impact program requirements to assess the need for the detaining with the CEAA Title 5 operating permits and all other applicable permits, LD Title 40 CFR parts 71.1, updating existing obtaining the new part permits as needed with the planning of the modifying, constructing, installing, removing, or from the surface emission sources that should be regulated under Title 5 other permitted with the LD Title 40 CFR 71.6 permitted with the area inventories required with the state and regulatory regulation permitted with the country specific final government standards. Determine the need to comply with the new source of performance standards, the new source of the review of non-attainment with the prevention of the significant deterioration. In addition, with the predetermine the need to perform the conformity and deterioration of the LD Title 40 CFR 51307 comparative with the federal, local, state, and local authorities to achieve the goals of the implementation of the Title 40 CFR 51. Permanent technology, the permitting with the pre-construction assessment that is required before beginning with the construction and reconstruction of the air emissions. Title 40 CFR 51160 related state regulations establishing risk management program, the developing the maintaining risk management when required under Section 1112 of the CAA, Title 40 CFR 68 150 through 195, implementation of maintain plans, implementing depending on the commercial acquisition class 1 ODSs, Title 40 CFR 82, reporting of the office the ODSs, the use of zero, the cost-effective substitute with the applicable standards because available with the Title 40 CFR 82, recovered class of the 1 ODs cannot be battered, sold, or traded. Recover the ODs that excess of the installation using for the Department of Defense OD reserves. Title 40 CFR 82. Coordinate national resource activities that have potential air quality impacts. For example, the pre-described burning for within which the appropriate state and local offices officials comply with the applicable standards and performance of new stationary sources of corresponding monitoring requirements, comply with all the air toxic regulations, including but not limited to the applicable natural emission standards, hazardous air pollution, maximum achievable to control technology requirements for regulated sources of hazardous air pollution. Overseas installation will comply with the permits obtained on behalf of the final governing standards. Water resource general comply with the applicable federal, state, and local law regulations recorded with the water resource management pertaining to the overseas of the Army will comply with the country's specific final governing standards requirements pertaining to comply with the all required federal, state, and local Clean Water Act, the Coastal Zone Management Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act includes wastewater and stormwater permits, operational permits, the drink watering system, the groundwater and discharge permit, the wetland 404-401 permits, septic system permits, underground injection control, and so forth. oversees installation will comply with these permits obtained on the behalf of the accordance with the final governing standards, identifying the implementation, pollution prevention, innovations, participating legal authorities, development and implementation of water resource initiative plans, mitigation, wetlands, and wetlands replacement of the functions performed with the drain and fill with the graded wetlands installation projects said that they should, whenever they possible, be cited that when the same of the watershed as effective with the installation wetlands outside installation boundaries, so and installation retained in the maximum land use flexibility. B. Recreational waters management. Recreational waters of military installations will be in accordance with the AR4050, Technical Bulletin Med 57.5, and Technical Manual 566.2. Water Resource Protection Management. All organization activities will comply with the legal, applicable federal, state law, regulations, executive orders, final governing standards conserve the product of the restore the surface water, surface resources, including wetlands, estuaries, streams, lakes, and so forth, and groundwater wells and aquifers. Executive Order 11988 and Executive Order 11990 addresses actions that federal agencies will take and identify, protect floodplains and wetlands, respectively. The CZMA requires the activity with the coastal zone of any of the states made consistent with the state coastal zone management plan, watershed management. Policy. Installation use of the watershed management of the program with the evaluation project of the program with the satisfy the environmental regulation facility project of the master planning with the impact of the quality of the water resources using the watershed and approaching the installation should develop the framework and plan with the coordinating with the integrating the management of the mission activities impacting the quality of the resource located on and all those that integrated off of their installation with the appropriate, which also requires the stronger committed with the involving stakeholders, both internal, external, and the management of those water sources to implement the applicable total maximal daily load regulation in all Army facilities will initiate, maintain contact with the federal, state, and the water regulator concerning with the progress of the state of the total maximum daily loads, allocation of water bodies located with the passing through the Army installation, integrated with all the aspects of the CWA. Requires programs and available information, for example, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, Program 404, Wetlands Program, Well-Headed Protection, Storm Water plans protected with the stormwater construction permits of the spill prevention with the control measures, the spill prevention control measure plans, projects that state CWA 319 requirements, state public plans and strategy for reducing non-specific source runoff, the total maximum daily load development and future planning. Ensure all these programs consistent with them with work together to attain the compliance under the total maximum daily load allocations only once they are set by the state. Ensure the activities required to meet the environmental law regulations with the RCRA with the impact of the water quality impaired with the water are impacted with the impaired water. For example, the Chapter 35, Title 16 U.S. Senate Code are formed in the CWA requirements. Non-CWA requirements should be integrated into those management plans. Ensure all the other programs that are applicable that may have activities affected with the identification of impaired waters or new total maximum daily load allocations are informed of the impact requirements. For example, the facility construction, master planning, national environmental policy Act requirements, ensuring the watershed assessment management plans are integrated with the installation master plans, integrated national resource management plan, or other plans appropriate, establish integrated environmental education participation programs in the CWA, SWA, and the comprehensive environmental response compensation liability, or social ESL, so forth. The Army personnel families based on the watershed concept requirements of the resource impaired with the waters maintained designated use of law or water bodies. Ensure the mission, non-mission activities, construction, and design utilize best management practices to minimize total maximum daily loads, impacts of the legal other requirements, principal applicable law governing water resource protection management, and the CWS WA related federal, state, and local law implementation regulation oversees the installation of country-specific final governing standards. Major program goal: implementation of the unified federal policy of the watershed approach for the federal land resource management. RPDF Unified Federal Policy of the Watershed Approach for the Federal Land Resource Management, Title 65, Federal Register 62565, 62 through 62572, 18th October 2007. 4. Program requirements and access installation watershed impacts the appropriate consider the upstream, the downstream quality, at other program background levels, proximity to potential designated impaired water, and effective the mission effectivities. Unified Federal Policy of the Watershed Approach for the Federal Land and the Resource Management, the Title 65 Federal Register, 62565, 62572 through October 18th, 2000. Carry out the activities consistent with the EPA state approved the plans for the strategies to restore impaired, threatened water bodies designated using the Title 40 CFR 130-12. Control soil erosion in accordance with the applicable appropriate federal, state, local law regulations. Title 40 CFR 122-26. Comply with the applicable appropriate with the state of the source water assessment with the protection requirements as they were related to the groundwater. For example, wellhead protection labs, Public Law 104, 182, Section 1428 and 1453, Title 40 CFR 144 through 148, and Title 40 149, Title 40 CFR 149. Wastewater and storm water policy comply with the facilities concerning with the wastewater collection training system that are owned by the operated by the public-private entities for the accountable, feasible, and security is not compromised. Comply with all the requirements of substantive procedure for the control and abatement of the water solution as obtained by the CWA for the required for the Army compliance. Control and eliminating sources of pollution, containment of the protect the water bodies and groundwater to employ the abatement and the measurement of the downsource for the source of the runoff of the construction facility, operational land management activities, encourage the reuse and recycling of the wastewater with the sewage sludge or waste wash rack, sediment, grease or oils, and other waste whenever economically feasible and environmentally beneficial. Legal other requirements applicable law to Chapter 20 to Title 30 U.S. Standard Code. As amended in Section 103 to 269.71 and Title 42 U.S. Standard Code 14101, intent sequence Title 33 U.S. Standard Code Section 2701, and Title 33 U.S. Standard Code state and local laws overseas installation country specified by the final governing standards requirements. Three major program goals of the Army's wastewater storm water with the major management goals are to reduce the pollutant loading of the point of the source and non-point source of the discharge to ensure the efficient water reuse. The program requirements attain to comply with the NPDES state discharge permits and will also include all the required plans to ensure the discharge for the industrial activities of federal owned treatment works and publicly owned treatment works to comply with the substantive treatment requirements of the publicly owned treated treatment works under the CWA. Development and treated programs as required by the FOTWs and the federally owned treated works and the NPDES requirements to improve the opportunities to reuse the wastewater fusion with the sewage sludge. Develop implementation of the stormwater management plan regulated by the municipal separate state stormwater sewer system that is required within the course of the installation general permit. Develop and implement stormwater pollution prevention program as required in accordance with the installation, industrial construction, municipal separated storm sewer and stormwater permits of the Title 40 CFR 122-26. Develop and implementation spill prevention control plan, countermeasure plans as required by the CWA Section 311J and Title 40 CFR 1112-23. Perform shipboard, shipside oil water separation before discharging the ballast water for the watercraft fluent limitations of the watercraft is described in the U.S. Standard U.S. Coast Guard Title 35, Title 33 CFR 151 through 158 EPA Title 40 CFR 110 individual states technical rules in 55 1900 206 and 14 coordinated with the proposed military activities involved with the discharge of filling material including the waters of the United States including wetlands and with necessary, such permanent and local U.S. Army Corps Engineering District and appropriate state agencies ensure the operation of the waters, including the industrial treatment plants, wastewater collection systems, have necessary training and certification in the Title 42 U.S. Standard Code 300G8. Analytical laboratories are certified with the applicable federal, state, local, host nation requirements appropriate with the Title 40 U.S. Standard Code Federal Regulation 136 and Title 41 4128. Follow the state-approved plan with the local permit requirements for the non-point source water pollution where it can be applicable. Drinking water policy. Provide drinking water to the fixed facility in accordance with the requirements of the SDWA state within local regulations. Oversee all the organization activities will comply with the country-specific final governing standards. Comply with the Army facility policy. Transfer ownership of the operating with the water supply treatment system with the public and private entities and the economical feasible when security is not compromised. Legal and other requirements applicable with the laws for the SWA and appended by Public Law 109/58 Energy Policy Act of 2005, state and local laws, and oversee installations country specific with the final governing standards, requirements, major program goals. The Army drinking water resource management goals are consistently provided with a safe, aesthetic, pleasing drinking water, adequate pressure and quantities to protect health and qualify the life of the people living and working in the installation, better management of the cost drinking water programs, program requirements. obtaining and complying with the necessary water appropriation and using permanent national pollution discharge and elimination system. Permits the water facility discharge through the drinking water treatment plants and other permits that are required for the operation of drinking water system, both fixed and facilities. Title 40 U.S. CFR 120, Title 40, 141 through 142. Comply with the provisions of the SCWA. As implemented by the state, local laws, regulations included, but are not limited to the following: Title 40 U.S. Standard Code 300G8D, Title 40 CFR 136, and Title 40 CFR 14128. Primary and secondary drinking water standards training of the operation certification requirements, leading contamination control, air act requirements, public notification, consumer confidence reporting requirements, watering system vulnerability assessment, emergency response requirements. Certified laboratory requirements provided with the copies of the annual consumer confidence report to the Installation Management Command with the Estate Injunction General by the end of the fiscal year. Perform the life cycle cost analysis whenever the upgraded construction of the new water supply facility is considered. Guidelines of military installation to provide warm constant cost of certain analysts in the contained with the Title 420 Title 49 Section 4.1. Monitoring upgraded Army water supply treatment and distribution storage system is needed to comply with the environmental regulations. Routine operation, maintenance, repair, and Army watering system will be in accordance with the AR40, 420, 49, 700, 136, technical bulls and Med 5576, 577, UFC 3, 230.02, technical manual 5, 810, 5, technical manual 5, 813, 1, technical manual 5, 813, 9, and USA CH PPM TG 179. After the consultation, supporting legal counsel complied with the applicable additional state and local drinking law water regulations not covered under the SDA. Land resources. Land resources, the range of containment of the areas associated with national resources include the soil and the biodiversity support. Policy comply with the applicable federal state law regulations regarding land resource management and permissible with the applicable overseas all Army organization activities will comply with the applicable country specific provide with the conservation, rehabilitation, national resource of the Army lands integrated with the training testing range for the operation of the service, port activities, installation, environmental management system, and environmental ensure that all the management plans address the range of operation activities appropriate, quantify the environmental encroachments and vulnerabilities, ensure the feasibility of using external buffer zones to enhance the testing of the training capabilities when warranted, working with the private landowners and eligible entities through the Army compatible using buffer access process. The management and the conservation of the natural cultural resource of the Army control included the planning, implementation, enforcement functions inherently governing the functions will be contracted components, but the contractor operated by the installation facility will ensure the contract instrument clearly address the contracting government functions that they are naturally and cultural resources. Legal and other requirements, principles, statutes, regulations, guidance applicable to the Army National Resource Management, including Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 67A and B, 670A and B, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 35, Title 50 CFR 1401 through 453, implementation of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service of the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration Fisheries, Section 1801 through 1882, attendance section, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code 2665, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code 2667, D, to Section 2671, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code, Section 2684A, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code, Section 2694A, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code, Section 1361 through 1407, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Section 14701 through 4751, attendance sequence, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Section 661 through 67A, the U.S. United States Code, Title Section 0701, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Section 703, 712, the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Section 3371 through 3378, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code, Title Part 13, Title 50 U.S. Code Federal Regulation, Part 221 through Title 50 Code Federal Regulation, Part 190, Title 233 Code Federal Regulations, Part 1016 through Title 50 Code Federal Regulation, Executive Order 13186, 13112, 13423, 11990, and Public Law 108 through 136, Department of Defense Directive 4715.1E, Department of Defense Directive Instructions 47153 and 47155, Memorandum Department under the Secretary of Defense Installation Environment, and Title 10 October 2010 Implementation of Strikes Acts Improvement Act of updated guidance. Applicable final governing standards are any legal binding and international agreement. The major program goal of the Army land resource management goals are and integrated with the national resource stewardship compliance with responsibility operational requirements to help they achieve the sustaining of the range of the training areas and all other land assessment, developing, initiating, maintaining the programs, conservation, utilization, rehabilitation, natural resources, Army lands program and requirements, integrated national resources management, development, implementation, integrated with the resource management the plan in accordance with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 67A, the cooperation of the USFWS, the State Fishery and Wildlife Agency, unless significant natural resources are absent. The OCONUS installation will develop and implement an integrated national resource management plan in compliance with the conscientious with the final governing standards. Final governing standards significant with the natural resources that are present with one or more of the following criteria will apply with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670A. Finally listed proposed candidates specify species on-site critical habitat has designated the proposed on installation conservation measures are necessary to conserve with the federally listed specify the conservation reimbursement forestry agricultural outleasing activities consisting of 100 acres or more hunting and fishing taking place with the special state permits issued with installation in accordance with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670 AC A, B, and 3. The installation conducts with the instance of the on-ground military mission with required the conservation measure with to minimize the impact with, for example, the soil erosion control with the prescribed fire with the sustaining natural resource installation designated with the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Garrison 3, 5, and 7 Development Management of the ITAM program meets the criteria with the unique biological resource wetland specific species at risk and ecological issues required with the level painted with the management that can only be addressed by the NIRPM. In some cases, the many difficult to determine with the installation of the house significant natural resource. In these cases, the Army Chief of Staff and Installation Management delegated with the authority to determine whether significant natural resources are present, and there if the NIRPM is required. Implementing the INRP actively requiring receiving and using the funds of the priority project. The activities ensuring sufficient numbers of the professionally trained natural resource management personnel are available to perform the task required for the NIRP or NIR. MP coordinated with annual cooperating offices. Documentation with the NIRMP actions accomplished undertaken each year. Prepare the NIRPMPs to include components addressing the specifically natural resources, for example, the endangered species, forest, flora, fauna, soils, wetlands, and interdependencies. Review the NIRMP regarding the operation effective with the parties and there through the regular basis, but not less than often than 5 years. And the update with the NIRMP aggregated with the concern with the installation needs to obtain mutual agreement with the coordinated with the United States Fishing and Wildlife Services, State Fishes and Game Agencies for the external stakeholders of the 5-year update with the not required the circumstances have not changed. Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670A. Using the NIRPM range of the complex master plan, the IATAM 5-year plan with the garrison commanders, tools for the planning and integrated with the land resources and compliance with the management activities, the military mission provided with the access training of the testing range for the sustainment installation with the land resources and compliance with the natural resource law regulations, executive orders, army appliances. Policies to extent appropriate with the applicable provided with the net policy with the capital installation land for the support of the mission and identified with the address with the threat of the mission land but gave the high authority of the management with the objective to protect the mission capabilities installation lands designated ensure the installation has ready accessibility qualified military the Department of the Army civilian state Army National Guard state staff member of the Army National Guard contract with the installation natural resource coordinated with the assure the National Environmental Policy Act requirements are satisfied performed with the INMRMP, the Title 50 CFR 402 06 42 U.S. Standard Code 4331. Conduct appropriate internal external coordinated with the prior to the Garrison Committee approval of the NIRMP's revision for the example the direct path lands of training mobilization security staff judge advocate morale welfare recreation provost marshal so forth. The NIRMP will meet the following conditions. Note that 2-5 do not apply with the overseas installations. Concurrence with the installation. Next, higher headquarters coordinated with the effective with the Army commanders, with the Army service components, with the direct reporting units, National Guard, Army National Guard, lieutenants, In agreement with the regional director of the United States Fishing and Wildlife Service concerning the aspect of the scope of the authority of the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670A2, coordinated with the NOAA fisheries in instance with the NIRMPs, including the TES, critical habitat within the scope of the authority, concurrence with the land management agencies, exercising jurisdiction and installation policy property, arrangement with the director of the state of the fishery wildlife agencies concerning the aspect of the scope of the authority, Title 16, U.S. Standard Code 670A2. Opportunity of the public committee with provided with a minimum of 30 days of the Section 2905, Public Law 105/85, coordinated with the draft INMRP with the Office of the Director for the Environmental Programs when the request of the integrated with the NIRMP with the installation master plan, range plans, training plans, integrated with cultural resource management plans, integrated pest management plans, cleanup installation action plans, and other appropriate plans to ensure consistency. Bows. For installation, having the training of the testing mission, ensure that the DPTMS and the range of control with the equivalent with the provided description, optimum management landscape requirements current with the future of the next 5 years to include the recommendation improving the capability, availability, accessible lanes, establish specific goals, measuring the objective components of the NIMRP, Title 16 U.S. 670A-B, establish the metrics measuring progress towards achieving the objective, prioritize projects required resources necessary to achieve the objective of the NIRMP, and as context when they make an authorized portion of the NIRMP available to the public through the electronic format. For example, the World Wide Web Compact is set forth that all NIRMPs will undergo the DPTMS security review prior to being made available. The requirements do not apply to the overseas installations. Accurately report the NIRMP data using the metrics of the Army Environmental Database and Environmental Quality Report Reimbursement Program Tracking System. Conduct planning level surveys, data analysis foundation, effective planning the decision of the PLSs, which exception of the Floria will maintain electronically geospatial submitted with the GIS repository as they are updated. The existing Army scope of the war will be used available. The PLSs should be keep current in accordance with the installation specific needs, but a minimum will be reviewed and updated necessary. Part of the NIRMP's revision of PLSs are planning level surveys include the minimum topographically a map with the elevation contours associated with the data with the U.S. Geological Survey standards and topographical map products, wetlands, description of the map, distribution extent of the wetlands consistent with the statement of the work defined with the Army, U.S. Fishery and Wildlife Services Memorandum of Agreement, surface of water is a survey that describes the map, the distribution extent of the surface of water, and consistent with the USGS standards. Spoils, a survey will classify the categories, describe maps and spoils of the map unit, meet coordinated with the National Cooperative Soil Survey Standard Procedure, Floria. Installation-wide vascular plant survey proceeds with the last plant species with the verified nomenclature classification and the ocean of the capability of the National Resource Command Conservation Services plant list with the accepted nomenclature, taxonomy, and symbols are plants, vegetation communities. The survey included the field data with described with the maps, distribution, extent of the domain, and co-dominant plant communities to threatened and endangered species. A survey map that shows the occurrence of the habitat, distribution, habitat management, the federally endangered, threatened, and proposed candidates, especially using the risk of on their installation. FUMA is a survey included with the field data that describes the mass distribution extent of the animals, ensuring the durability of sediment level and due to the irreparable, degradable aquabedia habitatal ecosystem perspective, significant impact of the shallow groundwater aquifers, evaluate feasibility, potential impacts operating motorized off-the-road vehicles, non-motor vehicles on the military mission, natural, cultural resource and management, determine feasible for develop a procedure for operating motorized ORVs, non-motorized vehicles that will protect the resource values, preserve public health, safety, welfare, to minimize the use of conflicts. The Executive Order 116444, obtaining the Army Chief of Staff and Installation Management approval prior to the signing the exclusive of the might constrain with the future land decisions obtained with the Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting of National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard concurrency before submitting the request of the Army Chief of Staff and Installation Management, lease assessment, and other special land uses, addresses, lease assessments, other special land use of the NIRMP, and ensure all land all conditions of leases and assessment consistent with military mission, national resource and conservation protection. Follow the policies set forth in 40585 Army regulations regarding right-of-way of an easement. Soil resource. The use of the NIRMP plan with the management soil resources across the entire installation of the soil erosion sediment control component to the NIRMP will address the following soils processing. Keep the soil erosion from the water with the tile stream policy with the soil survey with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the NRCS and the final governing standards of the host nation authorities. Keep soil, sediment, and pollutant with waterlands and wetlands and waterways with compliance limits. Minimize the impact of land use to the soil erosion sediment when where possible, indicating the locating physical intensive lands to distributing activity to the less or erodible soils using climatic, seasonal change, and soil erosion factors, scheduling and a sense of mission, operation, real property, and management activities. Identify rehabilitating land, distributed operations, and real property management activities, flora and fauna of the property. Promote the biodiversity ecosystem, sustainable Army lands, water consistent with the mission and NIRMP objectives. Be managing flora and accepting specific principles in accordance with applicable laws and regulations, and where lands and waters are suitable to conservation, indigenous flora and flora. Manage the habitat and preserve the inherence of the existing of the flora consistent with the Army goal to conserve and protect and some same biological diversity with the supporting the accomplishment of the military mission. D. The reintroducing of any species until only approval of the United States Fishery and Wildlife Service of the state and higher headquarters of the headquarters department include the installation of INMRMP, including an assistant with the training mission, the impact of the coordinator with the supporting Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting National Guard, Army National Guard Bureau, securing just above the approval of the Office of Assessment, Office of Army Chief and the System and Installation Management Plan, Office of the Deputy Chief of Standards, G357 DAMOTRS, Executive Order 11987. Consult the NOAA fishery for the action authorized by the fund with the undertaking of the advisory impact fisheries of the marine mammals, the threatened with the endangered species, the prepare and implement endangered species management component as to the NIRMP consistent with the current policy and guidance, carry out the mission requirements compliant with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 35, integrated with the species management installation planning function to ensure the compliance with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 35. In accordance with the Army Command System and Army Chief of Staff installation management guidance to take the appropriate actions to preclude the critical habitat designation and access. All activities include military construction and earliest opportunity to determine whether they may be affected listed species or critical habitat. Coordinate T&E actions issue the ACOM, Army Command, Army Service Component, and direct reporting units command, and other tenants may be affected by them conducting biological assessment activities that may have an effect on listed species, critical habitat, whether they are present may be present actions area informal consistent with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the NOAA fisheries documentate result in the writing and necessary biological assessment, biological evaluation to assess and whether an action may be listed in a species critical habitat if an action is likely to adversely listed in a species of our habitat formally consult and some consultation is required. Coordinate with the effective installation organization of higher headquarters prior to the initiating formal consultant with the headquarters department. Army may be identified proposed formal consultation that require higher level review installation provided with the proposal supporting documented as requested with the ODEP in accordance with the judge advocate environmental stuff proposal provided with the components. Formally consult with the U.S. Fishery and Wildlife System, the NOAA fishery, whether determined an action may be affect a listed species critical habitat. If an action is not likely to adversely affect the listed species or habitat, the U.S. Fishery and Wildlife Service and the NOAA fishery can occur with writing and formally consultation not required. Title 50 CFR 402. Confer with the United States Fish and Wildlife NOAA fisheries may any action likely to jeopardize and continuous existence of any proposed species resulting in destruction, adversely modification, proposed critical habitat. Title 50 CFR 402.20. Review of all the ongoing proposed actions immediately up open listing of the threatened and endangered species designation critical will have to determine the formal constellations if necessary, even if the conference has previously occurred with the Title 50 CFR 402. Complete the biological evaluation before initiating formal conference on actions affecting any proposed species or proposed critical habitat. Develop implementing strategy, promote incorporating with the other landowners in the use of the conservation banking, the ACUB initiative to minimize the impact of the action of the TNE species or critical habitats. Alright, almost done. We got 2 more pages to go. Within 24 hours of the report, read Title 16 U.S. Standard Code violation, telephone, electronic means through the chain of the command headquarters department. Submit the follow-up written within 7 days. Coordinate with the high headquarters. The high headquarters is taken with the final action to correct any endangered species management program that contributed with the Title 14 U.S. Standard Code 35 and violations. Ensure the TNE ensures they include with the training of the personnel make contact with listed species and their habitat, critical habitat, can coordinate with the training and the installation engineer, environmental Directorate, ITA and Sustainable Range component. Obtaining the headquarters department, high headquarters department Army will supervise supporting the United States Fishery and Wildlife Service, the NOA Fisheries Introduction, Reintroduction, federal, state, and local listed proposed candidate specified with the Army lands, protect the water rights necessary survival recovery listed proposed candidate aquatic riparian species coordinated with all water rights issues and appropriate legal counsel. Participate in listing, delisting, recovery plan, deployment, critical habitat designation where the species questions may impact the installation military missions. Cooperative in the state, local authorities, management of the Army, chief of the staff, and the installation management designated the Army specific species and risk of the habitats with the goals of avoiding listing of the could adversely affect the military readiness. Participate in regional habitat wide efforts for the conservative and candidate and the Army Chief of the Staff and installation management to designate Army species at risk of the habitat when it potential to benefit the Army to include the state listed species in the installation of the NIRMP specific species at risk in accordance with the Army Chief of the Staff and installation management manage species at the risk of the habitat to prevent listing that could affect military readiness program replanning and environmental conservation critical funding of the designated Army species at risk coordinate with the real property service funding and opportunities for other species of the risk, incorporate species of the risk of management in the IRMP, the implementing management plans for specific risk not include these limit to survey or monitoring habitat and enforcing protection. Forest management, practice responsibility stewardship of the forest land is to support the mission, conservation, reimbursement, agricultural, grazing, outleasing, and the forestry programs. Conducting programs compatible with mission operation with the support of the conservation, compliance, sustainability, natural resource stewardship. Routinely examine the Army land to determine whether the areas are unavailable to outleasing and/or other forest management. The AR 40585 and 40590. Coordinated with the DPTMS to establish the need for the doctoral training of the ground covering requirements, maintain the conservation reimbursement programs when they provide the direct benefit of the mission, environmental goals to dispute all revenues, agricultural grazing, outleasing the forest products, sales equipment, procedure for the conservation reimbursement funds with the Army Forestry accounting of the Army agricultural grazing and the account per DFAS NIM Manual 37100. Still no forestry nor outlease of land of the agricultural grazing purposes unless affects the sale and leasing capability of the NIRMP and Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670A. Ensure the equipment is procured with the Conservation Automatic Reimbursement Authority is not transferred to the table of redistribution allowance outside of the program. Federal governing ownership salvage value for the equipment proceed with the Conservation Automatic Reimbursement Authority forestry and agricultural grazing outlays will deposit an Army timber and agricultural grazing outlay these procedural accounts. Ensure that outlays do not grant offset and exceed the total amount of the outlays value. At a minimum, that revenue must cover the cost of the administrating installation lease. Continuing conservation reimbursement over the excessive base realignment closures and land until there's no held Army and clear cuts on excess of the base barack and prohibited unless approved by the ODPE. Use the revenues generated with the reimbursement program to maintain and improve the rehabilitated previous degraded ecosystem on the installation. Use revenues, agricultural grazing outleases unless reimbursement of administrative costs, outleasing other expenses incurred with the support of multiple land and management and natural resources. 2. Use revenue for the forest product and the sales with other management forces and natural resource support forces, stewardship land, and active with the conservation reimbursement forest program. Do not use automatically reimbursement authority and augment operation expense with the installation overhead with the predetermined of the reported availability in forestry as required with the AR 40580, 40590. Enter an annual requirement reimbursement program tracking system. Should the agricultural forestry procedures are not given the benefit with the careless destroyed, and all use the offset the contract with the trade-off the service to supply product with otherwise improved with removed access to land and use sure that the safely bound military service without leasing documentation environmental condition finding of suitability to lease and the environmental condition of the property report the title U.S. Standard Code 43211 when disposing forest product in the Army land with any means other than commercial sale fair market develop other valuable use the amount will be deposited in the Army forest account with the proponent forest product that may be used directly used in the military mission without payment. P. And all accounts of the forest product complete with the comprehensive harvest may be starting any construction that may impact the forest resources. Enter Army solicitation contracts for timber sales effective with Section 620J of Title 16 of the United States Code 620 through 620J containing the provision restrictions on exporting the unprocessed timber proceeded with the Army land. 9. Hunting and fishing, trapping, supporting the provost martial enforcement, state and law, the federal laws pertaining to the hunting and the fishing, the trapping, coordinated with the morale, war, rail, reaction, manufacturing, management, collection fees, and the hunting of the fishing, trapping, that do not have any normal appropriated, the non-appropriated funds, administrative of the hunting and fishing, trapping activities, deposit, collective sales of the specific states, and licensing, Army Official Wildlife Conservation Fund, and the Garrison Committee with the Garrison Commander with the authorized to provide not special state licenses for junior enlisted soldiers, B grade and E4 below, or to institute sliding fee the schedule to enlisted soldiers based on ability to pay. Provided with the controlled recreational access to the feasible Army installation containing land and water areas sustained with the recreational use Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 670A. Provide access to uniformed personnel and family members protecting public hunting and fishing traffic consistent with the security requirements, safety concerns, membership organization including rods and gun clubs. No bearing on receiving access exemptions even above the specific access right protected with the treaties and retrained with the Army and Indian and Alaska Native tribes. Process to be disabled veterans, military dependents with disability, any other permanent persons with disability with the public access available to them, topographical, vegetated, water resource with all access of such persons without substantial modification of the natural environmental coordinated action solution with the appropriate organic violations of the Army Office of Secretary of Defense. The access of the board is appropriate. The hunting, fishing, trapping plans will include the NIRMP installation to have such war programs, noxious weeds, invasive species management, the Director of Public Works and proponent with the noxious weeds and invasive species management. Prepare implementation of invasive species management component in the NIRMP consistent with the specific federal state law information the applicable and synchronizing invasive species management policies, practices, objectives, installation of the IATAM program, conduct missing activities, manner of the precludes the introducing species of the invasion species of the Executive Order 13.1.12. Do not use invasive species to install land in installing landscape or land rehabilitation management project. Executive Order 13.11.12. Use the most effective environmental sound approach for the controlling and invasive species to include these use the reduction and use of the pet or pesticide Department of Defense Instruction 4157. Sure the installation of the NIRMP the pest management is insert with regarding noxious weed management and Department of Defense Directive 4157. Migrant birds consisting of the headquarters Department of Army endorsement implementation conservation measurement identified with the memorandum of understanding of the Department of Defense U.S. Standard Fishery and Wildlife Services pursuant to the Executive Order 13.186 obtaining appropriate authorization that it takes the permit of the U.S. Standard Fishery Water System before and intentionally directing taking of any migratory birds and recording any of the purposely, intently taking under the authorization provide an annual report of the United States Fishery and Wildlife Service Title 16 U.S. Code 703-7012. Establish procedures to avoid unintentional take of the migratory birds, including nesting heads. Title 16.703 through 712. Wildland fire management. Reduce wildfire potential or using appropriate management practices such as pre-described burning, fire breaking, maintenance, construction, etc. installation with unimproved grounds to present wildfire hazard installation. Utilize prescribed burn land management tools, developing implementation integrated with wildfire management plan, compliant with the integral the NIRMP, installation existing fire management and service program plans, and the ICRMP. Assure the civilian contractor, emergency service personnel, and wildfire management and possess level training, physical training, fitness needed to expected level of involvement. Ensure that only the qualified personnel conducted prescribed burns. Chapter 5, Pest Management.